Hello and welcome to our coverage of the 2012 Bio International Convention, coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm Bill Sull with the Video Show Daily, bringing you coverage every day this week. We're going to be talking to speakers, we're going to be visiting with exhibitors on the exhibit floor, and we will talk about the industry trends, things happening here at Bio in 2012.
Welcome to Boston and the Bio International Convention. I'm Jim Greenwood, President and CEO of Bio, the biotechnology industry organization. Bio represents more than 1,200 companies and institutions engaged in research and development in all areas of biotechnology. Each year we produce the Bio International Convention, the world's largest gathering of the global biotech community. There's a lot to see and do at this year's event. I'd like to briefly highlight some of the people and organizations making news here this week. We are particularly excited about our Wednesday keynote lunch. CEOs from pharma and biotech companies will discuss where biotech will be in the next 10 years and how the pharmaceutical industry landscape is changing. Wednesday also features a super session with FDA Commissioner Margaret Hamburg and industry leaders. They will examine reauthorization of the Prescription Drug User Fee Act, currently under consideration in Congress. We'll also have sessions on health policy and reimbursement and patenting. And we will release a new report on intellectual property rights. The report shows a positive link between economic development and growth, tech transfer, increased rates of progress and innovation, and the strengthening of IP rights. IP also is a key theme of the 4th Annual Scientific American Worldview Report. This eagerly anticipated report and scorecard will be featured during a super session on Wednesday, highlighting emerging markets and major drivers of growth. Bio and Bio Ventures for Global Health will issue a new report this week showing strong growth in the number of companies engaged in R&D for neglected diseases. Bio is again partnering with Battelle on the State Bioscience Industry Development Report, an analysis of national and state biotech employment, establishments, and wages. This year's report finds that the U.S. biotech industry actually added jobs from 2001 to 2010. We have more than 125 breakout sessions covering the hottest topics in biotech. We've tried to make them easier to navigate by creating 14 tracks of programs, including specific tracks on food and agriculture and biofuels and bio-based chemicals. You can find more information at convention.bio.org. Thank you in advance for covering this year's convention. If you are interested in getting more details on anything I've mentioned, please contact our communications staff. We hope you have a great week, and thanks for coming.
Governor Patrick, thank you for meeting us at the Bio International Convention.
Thank you.
I want to ask you about the state of biotech in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and if you could focus a bit on the role of academic institutions as well as our R&D strength in the Commonwealth.
Well, we have an uncommonly strong, really international supercluster, and that has to do with the unusual concentration of research universities and colleges. I think there's some 270 colleges and universities within an hour and a half drive of downtown Boston. The number of research hospitals and teaching hospitals, other institutions that all play a role in our supercluster. They collaborate, they cooperate, they share information and talent, and they have served as a real magnet and foundation for our life sciences and biotech supercluster.
I must say I like the term supercluster, and when I read about it, it also refers to Middlesex County in particular. Could you talk about Greater Cambridge and Greater Boston and that term?
Well, you know, the whole Kendall Square community is a sort of the center of gravity in some respects, but more and more. Biotech is spreading beyond Cambridge and into Boston and out to 495 and down on the south coast and Fall River and New Bedford and up north of the city as well to Tewksbury, for example. And that's important because, first of all, I think we have opportunities, particularly for lower cost manufacturing, well beyond Cambridge, so that trying to attract, as we make more of the things we invent, trying to attract entrepreneurs to think about doing that manufacturing here in Massachusetts is part of our strategy as well.
Now, BIO International Convention is a big event.
Yes.
A lot of people here in downtown Boston on the harbor front. What is your view of the significance of this meeting? How are we going to develop partnerships that will grow for the Commonwealth?
Well, the first sort of immediate impact is the tremendous impact of having that many visitors in and around Boston, going to restaurants and visiting our attractions and otherwise supplementing the tourist trade. From the perspective of the life sciences and biotech and our strategy to grow there, having all of this talent from all around the world is a great opportunity for us to showcase our supercluster here, to build on relationships we already have, and to create some new ones. And in my case, I'm going to be meeting with individual companies and with government leaders, some I have known and worked with, and some of whom I'm looking forward to getting to know.
I think international companies want to have a foot in the United States.
Well, if you want to have a foot in the United States, you should be in Massachusetts. We have it all. We are focused on it. We have an unusual partnership between government, private investors, the academy, and this extraordinary talent pool.
Now, the state of the economy is doing quite well in Massachusetts.
It is.
How is biotech and life sciences contributing to job creation?
Well, I'll just give you as one example. Through our state-run life sciences initiative, we've invested about $300 million of public money in the last 4 years. That has generated nearly $1 billion of third-party investment, private sector investment, and created thousands of jobs. So our unemployment rate is well below the national average and going down. We're growing as a state twice as fast as the national growth rate, and biotech has been central to that success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
A meeting place for all companies, for multinationals, for domestic-based companies in the U.S. It's a high-energy environment of partnering between small and large companies.
We have a strategy to grow our economy, and we've added about 7,000 jobs in the biotech area.
takes 10 gallons of water to produce 1 slice of bread, 35 gallons to make 1 cup of coffee, 635 gallons to make 1 hamburger. With global population expected to increase by 30% by 2050, and more developing nations transitioning to higher standards of living, regional water shortages and peak water issues will become more widespread. Only 2.5% of the world's water supply is fresh, and less than 1% of fresh water is accessible surface water, with the rest locked up in snow covers, glaciers, and underground aquifers. While North America has 15% of the world's fresh water supply and 8% of the population, China is the inverse, with 7% of the world's fresh water supply and 21% of the world's population. According to some estimates, 1 billion people today live without access to clean drinking water. Global consumption of water is expected to increase by 40% over the next 20 years. And according to some estimates, more than half of the world's population could be living under conditions of water stress by 2025. This water stress could further exacerbate regional water issues and border disputes. This is already happening in the Middle East. Agriculture consumes 70% of the world's fresh water supply, and as water constraints rise, so will the food costs. There is no substitute for water, and the supply of water is essentially fixed. We will have to increasingly rely on higher-cost water desalination technologies, water reuse, and conservation. While the world is not going to run out of water, as these technologies help unlock more water supply at higher cost, water, becoming a more costly and regionally more scarce resource, will have massive economic, ecological, and geopolitical implications. Think about it. We do.
Hello, Bill Sell here with Chris Brogan. And Chris, we're going to talk a little bit about social media, but when you're looking at it in this day and age, it really isn't social media as much as it's digital marketing, and companies need to think of it a little bit differently.
The tools of social media, as they've come out in the last handful of years, have really been a lot about how do I try to make some kind of conversation, or how do I make any kind of a connection. And what I've been talking about with regards to extending the digital channel is just that, you know, in business and sales and all these other aspects of getting the job done, how do you incorporate the social elements, the mobile elements? How do you make all of your websites work the right way? How do you take the right mindset that's come from social media and graft that onto your other needs and your other business challenges? So that's, I guess, the map that we're playing on here. And
it really is the way you talk about it in Trust Agents in your book, that it is about trust. It's a communication, it's an ongoing dialogue that's been established. It's a permission to talk to us as part of a community.
Sure. I mean, it's very much about, we buy from people that we know. We don't usually take advice directly from the organization because we have that sort of fear of, well, of course you're going to tell me this. This is what you're selling me. And, you know, we buy what our friend tells us to buy, or we buy that somebody that we think we admire or we respect. So extend that out. If you are an organization who's looking to have a sale, and it could be business to business, it could be business to consumer. Medical products, for example, I mean, if I'm trying to get the latest in such and such a drug, ask your doctor about is the way they always sold it on TV. Mm-hmm. Well, how does that work on the online world, or how does that work in a peer environment? If I have type 2 diabetes and you have type 2 diabetes, what can we share that's, you know, about the lifestyle and all that? Where's the opportunity then to facilitate that conversation, and then how do we make that part of a business opportunity?
So then we're actually talking as peers, as friends, as part of a community.
Sure.
And we'll be talking about a variety of different things, but the solution is still going to be the medication there, and you'll still be able to find out about it.
Or a solution is that medication. I mean, one of the things that we we do a little wrong in selling is we try to really target the one thing that we're trying to get sold. But if we're part of an ecosystem mindset, if we're saying, well, you need to not eat cinnamon buns and take this medication, and then it becomes a little easier to do the sale, because if you're telling people about the other things and the other aspects around which that product is used, then they're a lot more willing to think about that product, because they're saying, well, yeah, I guess I do have to make all these other lifestyle changes, or I do have to think about this or that. It becomes that. It's really interesting. In some of the pharma commercials, that's what they're showing in the commercial. They're showing you that you can have your normal life, and now this is just the opportunity to facilitate what that really looks like.
And in terms of calling it social media, really, it's not just looking at some of the tools. I mean, if we're looking at their Facebook pages or Twitter accounts and things like that, those are just individual tools. They're the arrows with the bow, but you don't know how to put them all together yet.
Yeah, when people get worried about things like social media, when they think, oh, well, I don't know how I'm going to reach this woman. She's 57 years old. I don't know which of the social networks she's on. I don't know what to talk to her about. I mean, there's so many other challenges before saying you should get on Facebook or whatever that need to be dealt with. It's a question of you want the relationship with the person and not the network. The network is just a way to facilitate it. It's almost as simple as what kind of phone do you have. I mean, no one, you don't tell your salesperson you need this kind of phone to be a better salesperson. Mm-hmm. However, should they have a smartphone, it gives them a little bit more opportunity to use tools that work a little better. So it's more like that.
And in terms of long-term for companies that really aren't in these social channels today, they really need to blend this with their digital marketing.
No question. As companies are all discovering that their print marketing isn't the predominant part of their mix anymore, and it's shifting, the dollars are shifting away. They're saying, okay, I get it, I need to shift them into digital. But that doesn't mean shift them into banners. It doesn't mean shift them into search, pay-per-click only. It doesn't mean spend all your money on making an even better website or a microsite. It's a question of how do you really be where the people are, how do you facilitate conversation where they're asking for it, and what else can you do? What's your mobile site look like? And if you don't have a mobile site, in a world where 68% of all US traffic is starting at a mobile device, why wouldn't you?
And that would be one of the things that, QR codes, for example, very, very popular, all the rage. And then if you actually test some of these, you'll actually find out that many of them don't work because they're not enabled.
71% of QR codes go to a non-mobile website, and if the QR code is meant for finding, get your phone is how you shoot it, then what? And it's, I mean, talk about a technology that's difficult. It's a technology where you have to convince somebody to add a third-party application to one specific type of smartphone, or then be challenged to understand how and when to use it. So these are the kinds of questions that executives are facing. They're being told by junior team members, perhaps, we really need to get into this space. And then they're saying, well, how does this impact things? How does this add to my database? How does this give me a chance of predicting a percentage of sales value add that is going to come out of this new channel?
So the real thing is here, start with what the end result needs to be, and work backwards, and then deploy different tools. And maybe some of those will be some of these social media tools, some of the digital marketing tools, but we don't necessarily start there. You don't start saying, let's create a Facebook page and have it solve this.
Well, exactly. I mean, and that's, I think a lot of consultant work had kind of gone that way, is you need to get on this, or I need an app or something. And really the question is, do I need more awareness? Do I need to change a behavior? Do I need to make it cool to carry an inhaler? I mean, there's just all these things that are a question to be solved. Or do I just need raw sales? Do I just need raw volume of sales, and how am I going to best approach that? I mean, these are all different problems to solve. And so, I mean, not unlike being a mechanic or something, you don't say, oh, I just bought a great wrench. Now I'm going to be able to do whatever this wrench can do. Mm-hmm. You're trying to fix a car.
Right, and that you're an expert in that, fixing the car, and
sure,
you don't really care what the tools are. You just, client comes in, let me fix that car. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think in building, using a digital channels perspective, what you're looking to do is, how am I going to do what I need to get done with this channel? How am I going to get more awareness, more sales, more communication, more peer stuff, community building, whatever it is. And then from that, what set of tools do I need to make that happen?
So they really do have to start with the self-assessment. What is it that we want as the end result, and then work backwards.
So begin with goals, start understanding which tools better articulate the goals, figure out what's going to be the comfort level of the people that you're going to need to reach in these things. It's not a question of where's my buyer. How do I convince my buyer? How do I tell the story I need to tell to the buyer that I have.
Well, that's a good insight there, and some little bit of a roadmap for people to actually get started there. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There are 1.7 million known species of life on Earth. 2 years ago, scientists introduced the first one ever designed by a computer. And in the last 10 years, there have been over 3,000 patents issued for genetically modified organisms and other transgenic innovations. Within 50 years, we could have more life forms invented in the lab than we've ever identified in nature. We now have goats, whose milk can be spun into spider silk that's stronger than steel. Jumbo salmon that grow twice as fast as their natural cousins. Bacteria that produce anti-malarial drugs once available only from plants. Innovations like these can increase the supply of essential products, inspire new investing ideas, and launch or upend entire industries. It's all part of a new science called synthetic biology, using nature as a manufacturing platform and DNA as the raw material. Pharmaceutical companies see it as a pipeline for extraordinary new drugs and treatments. Energy companies see a route to cleaner, more sustainable fuels, like algae that produce biofuels and eat carbon dioxide. Someday, computers may run on DNA-based circuits, and biological paint could help heat and cool your home. Around the world, across borders, academics, entrepreneurs, and even students are working with over 5,000 DNA sequences called biobricks to explore ideas and invent new organisms. The DNA is available online in an open source database, and the collaborative, crowdsourced approach means experiments that used to take years now take weeks, constantly redefining what's possible. Although synthetic biology is still in a very early experimental phase, it could become the defining technology of the 21st century, bringing with it radical new thinking, new questions, and new opportunities. Because nothing has the power to change how we live more than changing life itself. Think about it. We do. We do. We do. We do.
Hello, Bill Sell here with the 2012 Bio International Convention Show Daily here. And we're bringing you a variety of interviews today. One of them, our guest, Jennifer Hanneschlager with Tiber Creek Partners. And tell me a little bit about your organization.
Tiber Creek Partners is an organization which works with a variety of industry partners, governments, NGOs, that tries to bring together needed collaborations and resources to help people start to think about creative ways to develop drugs, vaccines, diagnostics for emerging infectious disease and global health.
So these are considered like orphaned drugs and things?
Well, both. They're considered orphan drugs because the prevalence in the United States is so low, but internationally they're a huge issue. So something like malaria, dengue, Chagas, leishmaniasis have huge impact globally, have a huge impact on children, but have very little prevalence in the United States.
So how do you then encourage companies to go out and do some research and really get the R&D side of things moving?
We work with them to identify needed incentives that the government, for example, can create, such as the FDA tropical disease voucher. So that creates incentive for the companies to be thinking about, what can the FDA bring to the table that would incentivize a more commercial indication and then creates value for us to do R&D in a way that we wouldn't have thought of before. Additionally, there are groups like the Wellcome Trust, the Gates Foundation, who provide a lot of what we call it push funding, that hundreds of millions of dollars to encourage them to conduct R&D in a space that they wouldn't conduct it in on their own. Now,
will something like the Gates Foundation name an illness or a situation, say this is what we want to go after, and then you try to match up
Exactly. So the Gates Foundation has stated that their top 3 diseases of interest are malaria, TB, and HIV, which is great because they've contributed billions of dollars at this point to R&D to access for
and there's
for,
more coming.
for those indications.
It's not a one-time grant.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and there's additional $30 billion for Warren Buffett, but there is an additional 12 to 15 diseases that they don't address. Things like the helminths, some worm diseases, and some other parasites that continue to fall by the wayside and don't have as much funding and support. So we're really working to, for example, like the FDA priority review voucher, because those diseases, if you do research in them, FDA will give you priority review at FDA, which then creates incentives. So when the Gates Foundation is not at the table with those $60 billion, what other resources can we bring to the table?
And how can you move them quickly?
Exactly. Yeah. And the Department of Defense is a great provider of both funding as well as expertise in the field, because the DoD has been working in global health for over 100 years.
So in terms of your mission, really to bring these different groups together to help drive these partnerships, what are you seeing for the forthcoming year here, the second half of 2012, beginning of 2013?
This is a really tricky year with the global financial crisis, with uncertainty around the Eurozone. These investments in non-traditional markets has always been a challenge, even at the best of times. And I think right now, with so much uncertainty in the market, people are really having to decide, not just NGOs, not just industry, not just governments, but how are they going to, can they continue the investments they've made? And if they are going to continue these investments, how do they justify them to their shareholders? So I think that there's a lot of cautious optimism that people are going to be able to continue to make these investments, since there has been such a dramatic improvement in health outcomes over the past 10 years because of a lot of these incentives.
Now, are you seeing newer illnesses emerging? Are there more illnesses coming up than are being addressed, being tackled, and being won?
I would say that the awareness of additional diseases is definitely present. I think that given the prevalence of HIV, TB, and malaria, the investment that the Gates Foundation made, it was a natural place to dive into the pool. But with the recognition that there are so many other diseases to tackle, these soil-transmitted helminths, for example, that no one really knows what they are, but they have a huge burden on children. It has a huge impact on productivity over a lifetime. So the awareness is growing. The diseases have always been there, and how to create the necessary mechanisms and the funding to ensure that they're addressed is still part of the discussion that people are having.
But if people are trying to come up with a game plan,
yes,
how
exactly.
would a company that's looking to step into this one help you? Do they just reach out to you? Do they hit you on the website? What are the ways that people should reach you?
People find us on our website. We're at Bio. We have a lot of clients in this space. We have great relationships with the funders. We have great relationships with industry, with governments. So naturally, people tend to utilize us essentially as a facilitator, because we know a lot of the players in the field. So working to ensure that they all know who each other are, and that their various expertise can complement each other.
Okay, well, great. Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing you throughout the show here. Thank you for joining us here today on the Bio Video Show Daily.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, Bill Sell here with the Video Show Daily at the 2012 Bio International Convention. My guest, Eric Missick from the Biotechnology Industry Association. Welcome.
Thanks, Bill. Good to be here.
So how are things going? It's the beginning of the week here. You've got a lot of companies coming in here, a lot of attendees. Talk a little bit about the show.
Sure. So we're excited about this year, as we are every year going into the convention. But we're especially excited because we have over 200 more companies than we did last year as far as exhibitors.
That's excellent growth.
Yeah, last year we had about 1,800. Going into this year's show, we're a little over 2,000, so we're excited about it.
And they're global companies. This is not just a U.S.-based event.
Not at all. In fact, about 30% of our attendees come from international, and that mimics really our pavilions and the exhibitors that we have on the floor. So between 30 and 40% of our pavilions and exhibitors are international.
And in terms of the numbers of companies, a lot of small ones coming out here, or is this all the big ones?
Well, we definitely have a lot of the big ones. Many of them are our major sponsors. but probably of the total exhibitors, about 3/4 of them are small companies. So a lot of our regions, our states, and countries are showcasing those life science companies, so within their pavilions or within their exhibit space.
And on the show floor, a lot of meetings take place in the course of the next 3 and 4 days here.
Absolutely. In fact, we know just through our Bio One-on-One partnering system, last year we had 21,000 meetings take place in the business forum. Now this year, for the first time, exhibitors have access to that same system to have meetings in their exhibit space. So we're really expecting to see that number increase by a few thousand over last year.
Oh, definitely, if not more than that.
Absolutely.
And it's all about partnering. People want to get together here. They want to meet the attendees. Talk a little bit about who are these attendees.
Sure. So the attendees themselves come from all walks of life within the life science industry. Mainly a lot of business development folks come here because they're looking to do mergers, acquisitions, perhaps collaborations, work with some new companies to find out what they have in their pipeline and how their company can benefit from it. And that's the attendee focus. And the exhibitors are many of those kind of small to medium-sized biotechs that are looking to kind of be funded, help through all the clinical trial phases to get that FDA approval.
And on the speaker side, actually coming into all of these, many of the pavilions, you have a lot of politicians who take this seriously. They really have been funding these startup companies and other companies. So, on that side, you guys actually have quite a bit of representation.
Absolutely. We have a number of figures that are public figures that come to BIO. We have many governors that come to BIO and some other representatives from states and countries that are in attendance. And they're coming because they're supporting the industry. Life science is a big ticket within their country or state, and they want to be here to kind of be the spearhead behind it.
And what's up next? After Boston and this very successful long week here, what's coming up after this?
Well, the International Convention next year will be held in Chicago in April, April 22nd to the 25th in 2013, and we'll be back home where I'm from, and that's Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me here, Eric. This has been great having you on the Video Show Daily.
Thanks, Bill.